What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Quincy Bell Sports. And today we have a very fun episode on our hands because we have a special guest. He's an Ohio State fan, and we are going to have a good old-fashioned debate on whether or not Ohio State deserves to get into the college football playoff. I don't think they do. He thinks they do because he's an Ohio State fan. But we're going to have a debate on whether or not we think that these teams deserve to make the college football playoff. So please welcome to the Quincy Bell Sports channel, Kickfinity. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, hi, I'm Kickfinity. I'm an Ohio State fan, so I am biased, but I do think that Ohio State deserves to make the playoff, and I think I have some very valid reasons. I'm also a Browns fan, so if you like that type of content, consider subscribing to my channel. Yep.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to link his channel in the description. I think it's there. Yes, it is there. His channel is in the description. Be sure you go down there and you give him a subscription. He doesn't only talk about Ohio State. He talks about the Browns, the Cavs, other Ohio teams that he likes, and you talk about other sports too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he does. Okay, you don't have to keep muting. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we are going to talk about whether or not Ohio State should make the playoff or not. Now, we have to start out with the news. So, Ohio State, we can pull up their schedule here. Let's do that.
Yep.
They are 5-0. They have wins against Nebraska, Penn State, Rutgers, Indiana, and Michigan State. Obviously, some powerhouse teams. So, they had their game at Maryland get canceled. They had their game at Illinois get canceled, and then their home game against Michigan, the first time the game will not be happening. It's the first time this game will not be happening since 1917. Michigan ate up with coronavirus. They have 40-plus cases. Now, this could be a thing of, hey, we know you're going to get killed by Ohio State. We don't really want to play. We know we're just going to get embarrassed. I think it's a combination of both. If Michigan was like 6-0, they would do everything in their power to play that game. But there's no reason to. They have nothing to gain. They're not making a bowl, and they're not winning the game. So their game got canceled. But the Big Ten came up with they came up with a rule that said you have to play a minimum of 6 games to make the college football playoff. Not the playoff, to make the Big Ten championship. Now, this was just so you don't have a team that's like 2-0 getting into the Big Ten championship. Well, sure enough, Ohio State finishes at 5-0. And what does the Big Ten do? They bend the rules because Ohio State is above them, apparently. No one else in the conference matters. And they're above the rules. And why make the rule if you're just going to change it? So I need you to explain to me first, why is Ohio State above the rules?
Well, above the rules. I think any conference would do this for like the best team in the conference, because the fact is that, you say we're above the rules. We are the best team in the conference, and it would make the most sense for the Big Ten to have the best team represent, and I think it makes most sense for the college football playoff, because I think it would make it more competitive, because I think, we know the top 3 teams already, and that's Bama, Notre Dame, and Clemson. Then the 4th team is kind of what's up for grabs, and that's between like Ohio State, Texas A&M, Florida, all those other teams, right? But I think, and yeah, Coastal Carolina. But I think having Texas A&M, I just don't think that would be competitive. So I think it'd be just best to have Ohio State, because then I think that those games would be more competitive, and then it'd be more wide open.
Okay, you and I both know if Illinois was 5-0 and Ohio State was 6-1, that they would let Ohio State in. You know that that's what they would do, right?
If Texas A&M was 6-1?
No, I'm talking. Forget it. Okay, so the 2 games y'all dodged were at Illinois, at Maryland. They don't have to play those games because they just blow them out. What happened the last time they traveled to an unranked Purdue team?
Yep. But, what happened with the Illinois game, Ohio State had to cancel, but in that instance, the Big Ten had a limit of, like, how many players you could play without testing positive. And I mean, this was instant. So even though Ohio State, I guess, wanted to play, they weren't allowed to.
Okay, so now I would like to make a statement. Okay, people saw my top 10 list yesterday and they were angry with me. They were very upset. My top 10 is number 1, Alabama. Number 2, Notre Dame. 3, Texas A&M. 4, Coastal Carolina. 5, Florida. 6, Clemson. 7, Ohio State. 8, Cincinnati. 9, Miami. 10, Louisiana Lafayette. I'm going to make a statement, and you can respond to this however you please. I think Texas A&M is better than Ohio State. Or I think they're more deserving of the playoff spot. I think Texas A&M is more deserving. I think Florida is. I think Coastal Carolina, Cincinnati, Louisiana Lafayette are all more deserving than Ohio State. And I think they should all be ranked higher than Ohio State.
Why?
Because, all right, I will explain why. How many wins does Ohio State have?
5.
Okay, all those teams have more than 5 wins. How many ranked wins does Ohio State have?
1. Well,
Okay.
I mean, 2 at the time.
Coastal has 2. Louisiana Lafayette has 1. It is a top 10 win. Florida has 1. Texas A&M has 1. Texas A&M has a top 10 win. Florida has a top 10. I guess Georgia and bordering top 10. Don't really know about Georgia. Miami has some ranked wins, so they all have about the same amount of ranked wins. Coastal Carolina has more. Ohio State, I think Texas A&M is more deserving of that spot because they are playing the best competition in college football week in and week out. The SEC is better than the Big Ten. They just are. I'm a Big Ten person, but you have to admit that they're better. They have a win against Florida. They have a win against some of the better teams in the SEC, like Auburn, LSU. That's kind of it. Whereas if you look at Ohio State, their wins are just very lackluster. I think all those teams, when it's all said and done, their resume should hold a lot more weight than Ohio State's because, one, Ohio State has a division championship they don't deserve, and they're going to probably have a conference championship they don't deserve. Whereas all these other teams are going to have stuff that they earned, and they're going to have way more of a quantity than Ohio State.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about Texas A&M. I mean, Texas A&M, of course, their best win. I mean, probably
number 4, Florida. They were Florida.
probably the second best win in the country, only behind Notre Dame's win against Clemson. But I just think that Texas A&M defense, especially we've seen them against one of the powerhouses in college football, their defense has struggled. And even though Ohio State's defense has struggled early in the season, they've improved. Like against Michigan State, even though it was Larocchi Lombardi, they held him to 5 or 11, 33 yards and an interception. And then Peyton Thorne, he was better, but they still held him to an interception and 0 passing touchdowns.
Can I stop you for a second?
Yeah.
Okay, disregarding the number 1 overall team in the country that I feel like no one can compete with, which is Alabama.
Yeah.
It's their national championship to lose. Points per game, 12 to Vanderbilt, 38 to Florida, who's a top 5 offense, 14 to Mississippi State, 31 to Arkansas, 3 to South Carolina, 7 to LSU, and 20 for Auburn. If we take a look at Ohio State's defense, when my thing loads, my thing's being real, like it's being real today.
I mean, Texas A&M's defense, they allowed 461 total yards to Arkansas. And even though, this is, I guess, more impressive, and 340 total yards against Auburn. And Auburn's offense is good, but I think Texas A&M's defense, you did see against Alabama, but their offense also does not stand a chance competing against those best offenses. And I think Ohio State,
how does their offense not stand a chance against some of the best offenses when they beat Florida?
Okay, you're right. You're right on that one.
Okay.
But
my next team that I'll argue is better is I think Florida is better and more deserving. Their only loss against the top 5 team on the road, that's a tough place to win everywhere. They have a win against Georgia, and they've just been throttling the best teams in the SEC. They're taking names. They have a blowout win over Missouri, they're now ranked. I don't know how, but they are. Missouri is ranked, so they technically have 2 ranked wins against Georgia and Missouri. That doubles Ohio State's count. Florida has a game against LSU this week. They'll blow them out. I think Kyle Trask has looked a lot better than Justin Fields. I think he just has. They've thrown, the same amount of interceptions, but Trask has double the games. So I think Trask is proven more, and I think he's better than Justin Fields. I think Florida, their running back's better, their receivers are better, their tight end is way better. That man Kyle Pitts is a stud. Defense, you can argue that Ohio State's better, but Ohio State's offense would not be able to keep up with Florida.
Okay. So I guess my case for Ohio State against Florida, I think right now, if Ohio State played Florida, I think Ohio State would win. And I think a lot of people forget, I guess earlier in the season, a lot of the best teams that right now we're putting in our top 5s are putting in our top.
Someone brought up a good point. Jackson Rahal mentions that Tulsa has more ranked wins than Ohio State. Who did they beat? Oh, Tulsa, who'd they beat? Oh, I need to find who they beat. I know they beat someone. All right, they lost to Oklahoma State by 5. They beat UCF and SMU. Oh, but they're not ranked anymore.
Yeah.
Are we going with ranked at the time or ranked now? I'm going ranked now. Ohio State, they don't get credit for beating number 18 Penn State because they're terrible now.
Yeah. But, okay, back to that point. Some of the best teams in the country right now, like Notre Dame, Florida, even though they're really good teams, if you look at their first 4 games in comparison to Ohio State's first 4 games, it looked like teams improved throughout the season. So Florida, let's look at them. The 4th game of the season was a 14 win against South Carolina. South Carolina's bad, really bad, right? Only Mississippi State only beat them by 16. And Ohio State, their first.
Okay, I don't think you can really take into account the first game of a season after a COVID off season with all this craziness. Plus, Ohio State had more time to prepare since the Big Ten season started a lot later. So saying, they gave up 35 points to Ole Miss. It's the first game after the craziest off season of all time.
Yeah, that was
and
the
Ohio
third game.
State had more time to prepare. They had 2 more months to prepare than Florida.
The season there was, they couldn't do tackling practice. They couldn't really do much in their practice.
Yeah, they could. Yeah, they could.
No, they had to wait to do in pads practicing.
Okay, whatever. All right, let's go on to the next team that I think is more worthy than Ohio State. Cincinnati. Okay, they have a road win against SMU. Keep in mind, this is when SMU was just blowing opponents out, taking names just so they'd make the playoff. Beat them 42-13. They've been absolutely rolling over some very good teams in the American Conference. They don't have a ranked win, although they have a lot of very good wins against teams that could be ranked, like SMU, Memphis, UCF. They haven't lost a game. They've only played 1 close game the entire year at UCF, which is a tough place to play no matter where you're playing. 8-0, they're going to have a deserving divisional title, and they're going to earn their spot in the conference title.
Yeah, now, Cincinnati's in a strange position, right? And I think I'm a Cincinnati's fan as much as the other. They're my second favorite team in college football because I'm an Ohio guy, right? But, Cincinnati. Here, let's look at their schedule. Their Cincinnati defense, I think, in my opinion, even though it started good, I think if they played some of the better teams in the country, for example, even UCF. UCF, you can talk about how it's a hard place to play. So is Penn State. Even though Penn State's bad,
with
still
no fans.
Still a night game is a pretty
with no fans.
UCF's defense, or Cincinnati's defense against UCF, allowed Dylan Gabriel 243 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and rushing.
Gabriel also leads all of college football in passing yards.
Yeah, because he plays against AAC defenses every week.
Okay, let's move on.
Want to do Coastal Carolina
Here's
next?
my big one. All right, I don't think Miami, Oklahoma, Indiana. I think Coastal Carolina is not only more worthy of being in the playoff than Ohio State. I think they are the fourth. Their resume is the fourth best in the entire country.
Wait, who's?
Coastal Carolina. I have
Coastal
them ranked
Carolina.
4. They won't get
Okay.
in the playoff because they got screwed in the rankings. But
What
I
are they,
think
like
they have the
13?
fourth best resume in college football.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about Coastal Carolina. All right, so Coastal Carolina, of course, they've started the season well. I mean, they beat BYU. That's one of the best games, I think, of the season.
That's the second best game of the year besides Notre Dame and Clemson, part 1.
Yeah. Let's look at Coastal Carolina's statistics. Even in games that they've won, they've been outscored in yards, like against Appalachian State. 415 total yards for Appalachian State.
Okay, they scored more points.
Appalachian State, yeah, but
Points is the only stat that matters.
yeah, but I mean, if you look at how that defense would fare against, like, I'm not questioning their offense. Their offense has been incredible this season.
No, it's their defense that's been incredible. They've been carried by their defense. Their defense is one of the best in college football. Their offense has struggled a little bit. It's their defense that's carried them.
But how come their defense allowed Appalachian State, who's 33rd in total offense and FBS, so still not
pretty
bad.
much top 25. It's like close.
Yeah, they allowed them to get 415 total yards, right? 415 total yards, and
Look
I
at
guess
how many field goals App State kicked throughout that game. Look at how many times App State was driving and they held them to a field goal. App State's a legit team. People forget that.
I mean, yeah, but in terms of offense, 415 total yards. I just question how, I guess, their offense could, like, compare and could, like, fight back.
Didn't Ohio State give up 500 passing yards to Indiana?
Yeah, and in that game, that was horrible. And people were talking about how Ohio State wasn't a top, like, I guess, 10 team after that. 'Cause Ohio State's been incredibly hated. But Ohio State has improved since then. I mean, we saw in the Michigan State game that secondary was improved, even without the head coach. I mean, the defense was incredible that game, even though it was Michigan State, even though it was Peyton Thorne. I mean, the team has improved throughout the year. So, and you talk about the offense. Ohio State's offense is 5th in total offense, or actually 6th in total offense for FBS. And Appalachian State, who had 415 total yards against Coastal Carolina, I just question how Ohio State's offense, how badly they would absolutely wreck the Chanticleers. I think that they would get at least like 550 total yards.
You think, but you don't know. What we do know now is that Coastal Carolina has twice as many wins as Ohio State. They have twice as many ranked wins as Ohio State. I mean, I don't know what else you want from them. They have a worthy conference title, or they have a worthy divisional title. Their defense is one of the best in college football. They have a shutout against Georgia State. Listen to their points per game. 23, 21, 23, 27, 14, 0, 6, 23, 14, and 17. BYU was scoring 50 points a game. Held them to 17. Their quarterback, Grayson McCall, is a stud. Running back, Jonathan Marable, also a stud. I like what they've got going. They get up. They get motivated for every game. I think they can compete with the best teams in the country, not named Alabama.
Hold on, but you said Coastal Carolina's defense is what would carry them, but now you're talking about how everybody on that team is
they're good, but their defense is what carries their team.
Right. Okay. How come they allowed 367 total yards, even though it was the first?
That's not even that many total yards.
Yeah, Kansas, one of the worst offenses in FBS.
Okay. First game of a COVID season after the craziest offseason known to mankind, and they still beat a Power 5 team by 15 on the road. They won the game. They won it by more than one score. They're a Power 5 team. Oh, they don't play any Power 5 teams, woo. And then they go out, they beat a Power 5. Oh, that Power 5 team not any good. So if you're going to dock Coastal Carolina for beating Kansas, we need to get rid of Ohio State's win and discredit their wins against Illinois, Penn State, Michigan State, as much as I hate to say it. So that means that all those wins, they don't mean anything.
Yeah, but it was by 13. It's Kansas by 13, and that was the first game.
15? Can you do
Teams
math?
improved.
Can you do math? It's 15.
It is. Yeah, you're right. But I mean, Coastal Carolina. Like they've been outscored
They haven't been outscored once this year.
I mean, outscored.
They've outscored every opponent in every game.
Their opponent has had more yards in many games. I mean, against some of the best team or like the best teams on their schedule is. I mean, Georgia Southern by 14, App State by 11. Is this the team we want in the college football playoffs? Is this really the team we want? The team that beat Louisiana Lafayette okay, fine, Louisiana Lafayette. Everyone can talk about how good Louisiana Lafayette is. They beat them by 3, and you can talk to me about how Louisiana Lafayette beat Iowa State, who's the best team in the Big 12. But Iowa State is not making the playoff. Iowa State's going to get obliterated.
Iowa State's the best team in the Big 12. The Sun Belt went 3-0 against the Big 12 in week 1.
Yeah,
so explain to me how there are 3 Big 12 teams ranked ahead of Ohio State. Ranked ahead of Iowa State. No, not Iowa State. Explain to me how there are 3 Big 10 teams. Not Big 10. God, I'm getting my conferences mixed up. How are there 3 Big 12 teams ranked ahead of Coastal and Louisiana Lafayette when Louisiana Lafayette beat the best team in that conference? Not only beat them, embarrassed them. And tell me how the Sun Belt is better than the Big 12, because they thrashed the Big 12 in week 1.
I ain't saying that the Sun Belt's better than the Big 12.
Well, you're talking about how you're talking about their lack of Power 5 wins, but the entire conference is better than a Power 5.
I never bring up the Power 5 wins. I questioned the amount of points that they won by against their own Sun Belt opponents. Like, as I've said, App State by 11, South Alabama.
App State's a good team. App
20,
State,
yeah, 20.
What makes App State a tough team? What makes App State a tough team to deal with is they love running the ball and controlling the clock. It's going to be hard to blow out App State no matter who you are, because they run the ball so much and they eat up a lot of clock. Coastal Carolina likes to do that too. So when you eat up the clock and run the ball a lot, which is what Coastal Carolina does, your style of play isn't really built for blowing teams out. Like, I can see your cause for concern. And they beat Georgia State 51-0, but I can see your cause for concern. But it's not like they've struggled with every team they've played. They beat Texas State 49. Texas State, 1 win on the year. Whee! Go Bobcats. But blew them out 49-14. Shut out Georgia State 51-0. How good is Georgia State this year? 2-3. Okay, so they're okay.
Yeah, Louisiana. By the way, let's go back to Louisiana Lafayette, right? Of course, week 1 destroyed, embarrassed Iowa State 17. Let's look at, the amount of points that they've won by, and since then, Georgia State by 3, Georgia Southern by 2.
That was a tough road game. That's a high. You're coming off a high emotional win, and you got to go play a team on the road.
Okay, UAB by 4, Texas State.
UAB went 10-2 last year.
Yeah, okay, fine. Texas State, a team who's been horrible this season. Horrible. Beat them by 10, only 10.
Hey, Texas State has an overtime loss to Texas San Antonio. They have a 5-point loss to SMU. They've played some teams tough in their games. Texas State not as bad.
Arkansas State by 7.
Arkansas State beat Kansas State.
Who?
Arkansas State beat Kansas State.
Yeah, in week 1, in Kansas State, after that, Kansas State improved. It's not in that.
They dropped 70 on UL Monroe.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There are some good wins here, like South Alabama by 28, UL Monroe by 50.
Monroe by 50. That game against App State was crazy. The ending of that game was wild. Yeah. But I just think when you count it all, I think Coastal Carolina stacks up higher than Ohio State. Yeah, twice as many wins, twice as many ranked wins. Louisiana Lafayette has a top 10 win. You don't. They have a divisional title that they earned. You don't. If Louisiana Lafayette beats Coastal Carolina, like if they are when they rematch them in the conference title game. Now the conference for these smaller conferences, the higher seed hosts the conference championship, so it will be at the teal turf of Coastal Carolina. I think that Coastal Carolina will win, but if Louisiana Lafayette wins, put some respect on their name. But I do think Coastal will end up winning. It's sad that Coastal won't make the playoff. They might not make a New Year's Six bowl either, which is wild because the highest group of five team, the highest ranked group of five team will make it. And they're way behind Cincinnati. They're going to need Cincinnati to lose to Tulsa. So if someone could go ahead and if Tulsa can go ahead and beat Cincinnati, and Coastal Carolina will have a New Year's Six bid locked up. But like they should let Cincinnati and Coastal both in the New Year's. Like they're undefeated. What more do you want them to do? I just think the system is broken and we need a 16 playoff.
What more do you want Ohio State to do, especially, I mean, recently? I mean, you can look at Indiana, at the Indiana game as, I guess, not a good win.
Here's the problem with Ohio State, though. The Big Ten made a rule. When you are in the Big Ten conference, you abide by the Big Ten's rules.
But what does that matter?
So the rules don't matter.
No, I mean, like, what does that have to do with Ohio State in the playoff?
You have to abide by the rules that the conference gives you. Yet they go and they cry and complain that the rules aren't fair, woo. Then leave the Big Ten if the rules aren't fair. But of course, the Big Ten has to bend the rules for you. No one bent the rules for Coastal Carolina. No one bent the rules for Louisiana Lafayette. No one bent the rules for Texas A&M. So I just think the fact that they bend the rules and everything. Indiana has more wins. I think that should be worth at least something. I know you guys did beat Indiana, but how good is Indiana really? Haven't beaten a ranked team.
Yeah, hold on.
Okay, Wisconsin's kind of a ranked team.
Someone commented, Quincy, I just have a question. How is Florida's wide receivers better than OSU?
Kadarius Toney is a dog. That man is a stud. Have you seen, bro? Look at Kadarius Toney highlights. This man, you cannot tackle him. Let's take a look at Florida.
Yeah, but here let's look at Coastal Carolina again. Let's just look at the Appalachian State game, right?
That was a good game.
Yeah, actually, it was Coastal Carolina football. Here, what I guess the cause of concern is when you compare Coastal Carolina against Ohio State, or I guess some of the other high-power offenses. Ohio State is at least a top 3 offense in the country, or at least top 5, but in my opinion, the second best offense in the country. So, damn, I'm getting spammed. Okay. Passing, App State, 200 against Appalachian State. The Appalachian State quarterback had 211 passing. Rushing. Cameron Peoples, 178 yards rushing and 27 carries, 6.6 yards per carry and 1 touchdown. Nate Noel, 11 carries, 47 yards. And then Zach Thomas, even though he got sacked a couple times, still ended up for from rushes.
Sacks,
ended up getting.
Do sacks count as minus rushing yards? Like if you get sacked for a 10-yard loss, that counts as negative 10 rushing yards.
Yeah, and he got sacked a good bunch. So if you took those away, he would have ended with 36 rushing yards against Coastal Carolina. So against a dual threat quarterback in Justin Fields, who against Michigan State absolutely torched their defense with his legs.
Michigan State does not have a good defense.
Neither does Coastal Carolina. This is a team that have more pass.
Do you guys have a shutout this year? You've only had 2 games where you've allowed less than 20 points. You gave out 27 to Rutgers. You gave up 35 to Indiana. We're going to talk about how Michael Penix threw for 491 yards on you.
Okay. Pass defense. That was a bad game. Run defense. Indiana in that game had as -4
because they didn't need to run the ball.
No,
Why run the
because
ball when your pass defense is that bad?
Here, Indiana, Ohio State. They ran the ball. Well,
The one good defense Justin Fields has played through 2 touchdowns through 3 interceptions. Had an awful game.
Well, I mean, it was a bad game. It wasn't an awful game, but
it was a bad game.
It was a bad game, but I mean, against Michigan State, Michigan State, Justin Fields, 200 passing yards, 112 rushing yards, 105 rushing yards for some of the other running backs. I mean, this is a Ohio State team that can attack.
On. Someone said who won the game, Ohio State or Indiana. I know that Ohio State won the game, but he's mentioning how App State got a bunch of yards against Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina won the game, so it's the same point. You can make that point about any team in college football if you pick any specific game. This is a fact. But now, the last question is, do we think Ohio State will get into the playoff? Well, in order to get into the playoff, they have to beat Northwestern, which they should be able to do.
Probably convincing.
I don't know about convincing. Northwestern's defenses honestly look better than yours. 3 points to Maryland, 20 to Iowa, 13 to Nebraska, 20 to Purdue, 7 to Wisconsin, 29 to Michigan State. One of them was on the last play of the game. They were doing some lateral stuff, and Michigan State lateraled the ball back into the end zone. So really 22. So they haven't had a game where they've allowed more than 30. The most amount of points they've had is 22.
Right. All right, hold on. Let's go back to Coastal Carolina for a second.
So if you're not going to beat Northwestern convincingly, it just won't happen. Their defense is way better than yours.
Coastal Carolina's offense is better than ours?
No, Northwestern's defense is. Why are you talking about Coastal Carolina? We've moved on from.
No, sorry, I thought you were talking about Coastal. I mean, our offense is like more, how would you say, like more better, or like there's a bigger gap between our offense and their offense than their defense and our defense, because it's really close between our defenses. It's close, but it's not close between our offenses, because our offenses are 1,000 times better.
What 2 teams are we talking about?
Northwestern and Ohio State.
I think you'll win the game by about 10. I think you'll win probably 31-21. About. Does that sound fair?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I'm going to do a little bit of Team A, Team B comparison, even though you're going to know who Team B is, so I don't know why I'm doing it. So I'll ask the chat. All right. We know Bama has an automatic bid, right? Even if they lose to Florida, I still think that they will get in. The only way Bama could be left out is if Arkansas upsets them this week, which that's just not going to happen. And they would need to lose to Florida, then they'd have 2 losses. Okay. Notre Dame or Clemson. I think Ohio State's going to need Notre Dame to win that game, because if Clemson were to win that game, I think Notre Dame would stack up a lot better than Ohio State, and I think they would still get in. So I think Notre Dame will win that game. I just think they will. I think they're a better team, and they've looked better throughout the year. So you're going to probably need Notre Dame to win. If Alabama and Notre Dame both win, it's basically anyone's guess who those last 2 teams are going to be. You're going to have Ohio State sitting at most likely 6-0 after a conference title game. You're going to have Texas A&M sitting at probably 7-1, 8-1, 9-1. Did their game against Ole Miss, are they going to end up playing Ole Miss? I need to look at Texas A&M real quick. I'm really high on Texas A&M. I think they're the 3rd best team in the country, and a lot of people don't like that. Okay, it says Ole Miss is postponed, which means they're planning on making that game up, I think. If not, and they go and beat Tennessee, they're playing Tennessee on Conference Championship Week. It's going to be interesting because there are going to be games played on the Conference Championship Week that aren't Conference Championship games. So that's going to be interesting to see how Texas A&M favors. But let's say they're 8-1. They've got a win over Florida. They have the 6th hardest strength of schedule. They have the 3rd best strength of record. So there's that. We're going to assume Florida is eliminated if Bama beats them. And Clemson would be eliminated if Notre Dame beats them. Georgia has no chance they get in. Same thing with Miami, Oklahoma, Indiana. So that means your last 2 spots are Ohio State, Texas A&M, Iowa State. If they finish with 2 losses, no, I think what's definitely going to help Iowa State is the fact that they'll have a conference title game. They have 2 ranked wins, 2 ranked wins, beat Oklahoma and Texas. They would have 3 if they were to beat Oklahoma again. Would have helped a lot if they beat Louisiana Lafayette week 1, because then they'd have 4 ranked wins, and they'd only have 1 loss. But, of course, they went out and laid the biggest egg in the world. There's actually a backdoor chance Iowa State can get in. The fact that they jumped Cincinnati and Georgia in the last college football rankings, I'm loving that if I'm an Iowa State fan. I think what the playoff will be, I think Bama wins. I think Notre Dame wins. I think Ohio State's going to win, and they're just going to slide up to number 3, and they would play Notre Dame. That 4th spot, it's Texas A&M or Iowa State or Cincinnati. But the fact that since the Iowa State's already ranked above Cincinnati means that they think that they're better than them. And that's close. That's close. Iowa State would have more ranked wins. They would have more ranked wins. They would have more. Texas A&M would have a top 10 win. Iowa State would not. But Iowa State would have the conference championship and division title. I know, they don't have divisions, but 2 teams from the conference title game make it, so I'm going to count that as a divisional title. So, what do you think will happen to end? So I think your playoff teams are going to be Bama, Notre Dame, Ohio State, and I think Texas A&M is going to slide in at that 4th spot. What do you think the playoffs are going to be?
What do I think is going to happen?
Yes.
All right,
let's start off with this. Who are you taking, Bama or Florida?
Bama.
Okay,
Bama.
who are you taking, Notre Dame?
I think it's going to be closer. I think it might be I think it'll be a 9-point game or something like that.
Okay. Who are you taking, Notre Dame or Clemson?
Taking Clemson.
Okay. So that means you have Alabama at 1, Clemson at 2.
What I think is going to happen, and what I hope is going to happen, I think Alabama is going to win. So Alabama stays at 1. I think Clemson is going to win kind of convincingly against Notre Dame. And I can tell Colin's going to get super angry at me in the chat, but I think Clemson's going to win, and then they're going to be at 2. And I think Ohio State wins convincingly against Northwestern. They win by at least 3 touchdowns, 3 or 4 touchdowns, something like that.
3 or 4 touchdowns. That's bold.
I mean, it's not that bold.
It's pretty bold.
This is an Ohio State team that just beat a team that beat Northwestern by 40.
Northwestern hasn't allowed 4 touchdowns in a game this season. Yeah, playing the same teams Ohio State has.
No, but they haven't played an offense on the same level as Ohio State. They haven't.
True, but you're picking up what I'm throwing down, right?
No, but it's true. They lost to Michigan State, right? They lost to Michigan State. Michigan State lost to Ohio State by 40, right? And Ohio State was without 4 starters, 4 of the most important starters on the team.
Everyone's out starters every game. You can't use that as an excuse.
Yeah, but it's still important. We had a backup center who had tons of bad snaps, especially early on in the game. So I just think Justin Fields is actually going to destroy that Northwestern team. So I think Ohio State wins, right? So Ohio State, I think after an impressive win.
Okay, so you have Bama 1, Clemson 2.
3 is going to be Ohio State because they're going to be even though they've only played 6 games. I just think the committee is going to look at it. But I think if Ohio State does not win, if they win by 2 touchdowns or less against Northwestern, they're going to be, if they make the playoffs, it's going to be at 4. And I think 4 will be Notre Dame. So it's going to be Notre Dame and Bama and Clemson, Ohio State in a rematch of last year.
Okay. So, all right. You're saying Bama, Clemson, Ohio State. And then your fourth team. How much do you think Clemson beats Notre Dame by? I don't think they win at all. I think Notre Dame will beat them.
I mean, I think the reason why I have Clemson winning is because I just think Clemson is better coached than Notre Dame. So
you hear that, Brian Kelly? Yeah.
I mean, Brian Kelly's a good coach. I just think, Dabo Swinney, especially in championship game. I mean, they got
how many points? How many points?
Like 5.
5. Okay.
It's going to be a one-score game. It's going to be close.
All right. So who do you think would get that last spot? Texas A&M.
Notre Dame.
Iowa State. You think Notre Dame would get it?
Yeah,
so
it's going to be.
Bama plays Notre Dame and Clemson plays Ohio State. And by the way, Clemson owns you like property. They just do.
Wait. Just wait.
They own you like property. I think Notre Dame wins by 3. Because I think
this guy Florida Gator.
DJ Uyungada Rungada Bungada Tungalale is better than Trevor Lawrence.
This guy Florida Gator, Clemson 5-4. Yeah, I think that's what happens. Like, I don't know, like 34-30 or something like that. Right. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if Notre Dame won.
Here's the problem, though, and here's going to be the big dilemma. If Notre Dame loses, they're going to say, oh, the only reason they beat them in South Bend was because it was at home and all their starters were out. That's what they're going to say. Regardless of whether or not that's fair. That's what they're going to say.
Yeah, but are they really going to put a one-loss Notre Dame team who beat every single team on their schedule? Like, they lost to Clemson, but they beat him early in the season, so technically they beat every single team they played. Yeah. Are they going to put that or a Texas A&M team who already played Alabama in the season and lost – what was the score? Like 52-7?
Any team in the country would lose to Bama by 28.
Not by 28.
Yes. Well, have you seen what Bama has done to their opponents?
I know, but I just don't know if the committee would want that.
Missouri by 21, Texas A&M by 28. Ole Miss was a close game. Ole Miss can't stop a tumbleweed. Blew out Georgia, blew out Tennessee, blew out Mississippi State, beat Kentucky by 60. There's no team that can compete with Alabama. And they're going to win the national championship.
Yeah, they are. They're going to win the national championship.
I mean, I'd like to see a team like Texas A&M or Notre Dame or Clemson knock them off, but
I think
Bama might be in trouble next year, though. Mac Jones is leaving. They got Bryce Young coming, but they don't have as many good receivers. They're getting carried by their receivers. We don't know how good Bryce Young is. That could be a total flop. Who knows?
No,
but they will not be.
It's going to be good.
Texas A&M, if Kellen Mond stays.
Yeah. Do you want to do a prediction for the entire top 10 for the rest of the season?
Like, what do you mean?
I don't know, because we're already doing the top 4. Do you want to do the rest of the teams?
No, because the rest of the teams. Who do we think is going to make the rest of the New Year's Six bowls?
Well, who's 5 going to be? Who's 6 going to be? Who's 7 going to be?
That doesn't really matter because besides 4, it's just New Year's Six bowl. So the top 4 is really all that matters. But all right. Here's what I think would happen. 1, Bama. 2, Notre Dame. 3, Ohio State. 4, Texas A&M. Actually, here's the thing. Are they going to have Texas A&M play Alabama?
No.
Why would they have a conference matchup in the bowl game? I think they should move Texas A&M up to 3 and have Ohio State be 4. Because I don't think they should have a conference matchup in the semifinal. I just wouldn't like that. I think number 1, Bama. 2, Notre Dame. 3, Texas A&M, just because I'm going to keep that into account. There's no way they're going to have that big of a game be a conference game. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah, especially
4, Ohio State. 5, Iowa State. 5, Iowa State. 6, Cincinnati. 8, Clemson. 9, Florida. And 10, Miami.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So what I think it's going to be, I think if you 1 Bama.
Because I think Iowa State will beat Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship.
1 Bama, 2 Clemson, 3 Notre Dame, 3 Ohio State, 4 Notre Dame, 5 A&M, 6 Cincinnati, 7 Florida. Because Florida's still going to play in the New Year's Six Bowl. I think they've already booked a ticket to a New Year's Six Bowl unless they get absolutely abused by Alabama, unless they lose by a huge amount. Then 8 Coastal Carolina. I think they go undefeated. 9, I say Miami. And then 10, I don't know. 10 maybe Oklahoma.
Okay.
or whoever wins.
That's what I was saying. So then we got bowl games, and these are always interesting. All of the bowl games are at large positions. All you need the highest ranked non-group of 5 team, which would be Coastal or Cincinnati.
It'd probably be Coastal.
No,
Or
it's
no,
gonna
it'd
be
be
it's gonna be Cincinnati because they're already ranked higher than them.
So what's BYU gonna play in? They're gonna play in like
They're gonna play in like the Boca Raton Bowl or something.
They're gonna play in like the Pizza Bowl or something.
They're gonna play in
The little.
my personal favorite is the Cheez-It Bowl.
Oh yeah, that game's gonna end like 3-0.
Well, the worst game of football I ever watched was Cal and TCU in the Cheez-It Bowl. Both quarterbacks threw 5 interceptions, and Cal won I forget who won. I think Cal won. They won 9-6 in overtime. It was the worst game of football I've ever watched. All right,
anyway,
and the Orange Bowl has to have an ACC team.
It'd be Miami, and Oklahoma.
Okay.
Or Miami.
Never mind your 6 bowl predictions. Cotton Bowl. Iowa State and Cincinnati. Orange Bowl. Clemson and Florida. Peach Bowl. Georgia and Indiana. And then what other one am I missing? Fiesta Bowl.
Oh yeah, the Fiesta Bowl. Oh, the Fiesta.
Who did I miss?
Texas A&M.
I have Texas A&M in the playoff.
Oh right. Ohio State. Or
I have Ohio State in the playoff too.
You have Clemson in there.
I have Clemson playing Florida in the Orange Bowl.
What about Oklahoma?
Oh, okay. So the Fiesta Bowl will be Oklahoma and I don't know, maybe USC?
Oh, maybe Colorado.
Colorado. No, stop it. I hate how people think Colorado's going to win the USC could go 7-0 and no one cares because the Pac-12 is just that dumb.
McMets is right. Georgia could play like Cincinnati in the Peach Bowl or something. Or we forgot about Indiana. Indiana's going to play in a Year 6 Bowl.
No, I said Georgia will play Indiana in the Peach Bowl.
Oh.
All right. I think that's going to end this stream. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Kickfinity, do you have any last words?
No.